I want to kind of compact the whole of psychology and religion into 10 minutes, but it'll be fine. It'll be simple. No, more seriously, we're doing the 3 awareness techniques. We started with body awareness. We did breath awareness for a few weeks. And now we're doing a third type, which is observing your thoughts. And it's interesting. I've had great feedback from some of you on, wow, this is amazing. I'm actually feel like I'm meditating, and it's deep and it's powerful. And possibly some of you are saying, oh, this one's tough, you know. And that's fine. That's the whole goal is to strengthen the different muscles that make up meditation. But one reason this observing your thoughts meditation technique is so powerful is it expands into your everyday life. What I mean by that is what you're doing in the 20 minutes is something that you should begin doing in your life, which is to be aware more of thoughts and feelings. And if you do, you'll start seeing quite a powerful transformation that'll happen in you. And I'm going to explain why. But let's back up. You're sitting on your balcony. We spoke about this beautiful balcony with a breeze, and you're looking over the rooftops of an old Italian village out at the fields. You see the mountains in the background. You've got the breeze on your face. And that's my metaphor for the sweet place of meditation, of peace, of being connected to God, of feeling, being. And you're sitting there. Now, why would you get distracted? It's a good question, right? Like, because you want to do this. So why? Let's not get distracted. But you can't help it, right? And that shows the problem we've got is that our minds are outside of our control. We really want to do this. Like each of you, if you could, you'd want to have a perfect 20 minutes, just deeply connect to the source of life and not have a single distracting thought. But you can't. And so why is that? Well, it's because we've lived 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 70 years in some cases. And our minds have had the better of us. Our minds have controlled us. And now we're trying to establish this control of a deeper part of us, which is our spirits. Some religious traditions refer to that problem as the monkey mind. That it's like, you know, picture a monkey that's just all over the show, chattering, distracted, jumping around, pulling the other monkey's tail. And our minds are like that. Now, why is the monkey like that? Why are our minds not letting us meditate, not letting us be in the sweet place? Well, partly just because they're undisciplined, they're untrained. Like if you should be a hunter, you should be really fit, but you never run. You get out of shape, and our minds are like that. But there's a deeper reason, and that's what I'm going to get to in this little talk. And that is that we actually have a type of an illness. In Christianity and Judaism, it's referred to as the fall in the Garden of Eden. And what happened is that Adam and Eve, which is a metaphor, is not actually two people, or you can believe that if you like, but humanity had this connection with God, and the Bible says they walked with God in the cool of the garden. It's a bit like sitting on the balcony in this place of meditation, sitting in the spiritual place, connection, union with God. And then there was this apple, right? There was this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that refers to rational consciousness. And they took it and they ate it. What that did is it spooled up minds, rational consciousness. And so human beings developed this movie in their heads. Another word for it is the ego. And they developed this existence separate from God. This picture, this movie that goes around in their heads. And that caused the separation, and they had to leave this beautiful paradise that they're in. And that's really the main reason you get distracted in meditation, is because you've got a whole big program, a movie going on in your head that's separate from God and separate from other people, and it's your ego. And so let's just probe a little deeper and explain that. Another word for it is the false self. And this is how it works, that every human being's got three needs. Legitimate needs, like God-given needs. You've got a need to be loved, you've got a need to be safe, and you've got a need to express yourself, have the freedom to be who you want to be. The big problem is that from the time you were a child, this brain felt that one or more of those needs weren't being met. And that's from the time that a baby's in the crib. So it's lying there, and suddenly it just thinks, wait, I need a hug. I'm not in the womb anymore. The womb is nice and cozy. I need a hug. So it cries because there's nothing surrounding it. And it cries, and wow, nobody comes. Maybe for 3 minutes, maybe the parents don't hear, or they're a little slow, or they feel, no, let the baby cry. And this little brain says, I'm not loved. I'm not loved. Or maybe it's just a question, maybe I'm not loved. And then that happens the next time. I cry, why doesn't anyone come? Fast forward 2 years later, I call for mom. Mom doesn't immediately come. And the little brain starts thinking, you know what, maybe people don't love me. And then it starts planning to get love. And this is where the problem comes in. It starts hanging around mom. Mom, pick me up. I remember my little child, James, we moved into this new house, and Pippa and I were both so busy organizing the house. And I still have this little picture of this little guy crawling all over behind us, saying, up, up. And like we wanted to pick him up, and we did pick him up and hold him, but then we got to move, so we put him down and he starts screaming again. And so as a crawling little thing, his brain is going to get love. I've got to get love because maybe I'm not loved. Fast forward to school, and he wants the teacher's attention, doesn't get it, thinks of ways of getting it, irritates the teacher, she yells at him. In the head, it says, I'm definitely not loved. I better try even harder. And so it goes. And then at 13, he thinks, okay, well, there's girls, very nice looking. If they could love me, that would be the answer. And then has plans, and then some form of rejection happens, and the little program gets scrambled again and says, I'm not loved. This is just one of the three needs, the need to be loved. The other one is safety, and the other one is the ability to express. And there's so much on this, and like I said, I'm trying to fast forward through it, but all of us sitting on this call and every other one of 7 billion human beings basically have the unhealthy need for affirmation and or the unhealthy need for security and or the unhealthy need for control. That third one is what people do when in their young lives, they perceive that they're not able to express themselves. Maybe you had very strict parents. They squashed you when you wanted to do something, and your little mind started saying, maybe I don't have the ability to be what I'm meant to be. And then you develop this kind of little bit of rebellion maybe, and this drive inside of you to have control of your situation. So not all three of those might resonate with you. I'll tell you, my two are the unhealthy need for affirmation. I'm 52 years old, but I've got an unhealthy need for people to like me. And the unhealthy need for security, which in my case has to do with money. But you might say, affirmation, I don't care, I don't need it, but you're a control freak. You need a huge amount of control around your life. If you haven't got your hands on every steering wheel, it makes you anxious. And so every human being has 1, 2, or 3 of these in some combination. And why? Because the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the rational consciousness, our brains, whatever began way back, have been used all of our lives to push for one of those three things: love, security, and freedom. And so we've developed these subconscious programs. So at 45, I'll tell you a very quick story. At 45, I have a midlife crisis. Why? Well, because my business is not doing so well. Who cares? Well, I care deeply because I didn't realize this. But my business and being a successful CEO was how I would get people's respect and affirmation. And now it's not being successful. Some of you might say, well, who cares? Well, for me, it was everything. Because I had this huge program built up into my head, this strategy of how I'm going to be successful in business, and then people will like me. But it wasn't even conscious. It took great suffering. It took not being able to sleep and getting anxious and depressed for me to wake up and realize, wow, I'm not just trying to be a CEO because that's what I'm called to be or that's what I'm good at. It's a clever program that is a follow-on from me being 2 years old and finding ways to get people to like me and accept me. If you want a healthy life, you can't live with that false self. So these three things, this unhealthy need for control, affirmation, or security, is called our false self. And it's hidden in our thought processes. And you could call them energy centers. They're like drives that are happening inside of you, and they're mostly unconscious. So why have I told you all this? And I've probably done a bad job, but like I say, I'm trying to summarize in 10 minutes the whole of like books of psychology. And interestingly, if you look at Christ's three temptations, it says that in his early years before he started his ministry, he was led into the wilderness and he was tempted by the devil, and he fasted for 40 days. These are the three things that he was tempted with. Devil came and said, hey, dude, like, you don't have food. Why don't you just short circuit this whole fasting rubbish and turn these stones into bread? And Christ had been sent into the desert to be filled by God's Spirit, not by the false energy centers. And so he declined. He said, no, I can get bread, I'm safe. But I don't need to prove it. I'm just safe in God. So that's the unhealthy need for security. He kind of won that battle. Then he said, tell you what, throw yourself down from that tower, get the angels to rescue you, because you're God, and then everyone will know that you're God and they'll love you. That's the unhealthy need for affirmation. And he said, no, I don't need that. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need people to think I'm God, even though he was God, right? And then the third one, the devil says, if you worship me, I'll give you control over all the kingdoms of the world. And again, he said, I don't need that. Like, I'm happy here just in the desert. Desert represents emptiness. There's nothing here to stimulate me and make me happy. And I haven't even got food. But I've got this thing that happens to you when you meditate. I've got this presence that nourishes my soul. And that gives me love, security, and freedom to express myself. So, like, this is something the religions have touched on, and it's elsewhere in the New Testament too, and that psychology has more recently unpacked further, but that's the monkey mind. So to land the plane, that's why you really get distracted with thoughts. But after a bit of time of meditation, the thoughts that start coming up are actually thoughts linked to your false self. And that's why it's so cool to observe them, to be able to say, aha, I'm having a bit of conflict with a business partner at the moment in one of our other ventures. I can almost guarantee you, when we start meditating now, something about that is going to come up. An email, remembering something he said, that's going to be the thing that tries to pull me off my nice balcony, right? And drop me into the mud of the street. And then if I run with it, I'm going to get into a dialogue with this guy during the meditation session. That's the goal of my false self, of my ego, right? But why? Why? Well, the reason it's such a big deal is because I've got this unhealthy need for affirmation. And now I'm worrying this guy doesn't like me, you know? I'm worried we're going to get into a fight. This energy center of mine is like flashing orange. But if I can observe those thoughts, not get carried away by them, and just say, I see you. I'm not only going to have a great meditation time, but I'm going to start getting changed. I'm going to experience a process of healing. That's why I said to you, meditation is spiritual, psychological, and neurologically healthy. And this process of beginning to examine your thoughts is huge. So that's all I'm going to say for today. I hope it makes some sense. I want to qualify this. Meditation is not sitting and psychoanalyzing yourself, okay? So I'm not suggesting that what Rob should do is the thought comes up about this conflict and that I should like really get into it and say, oh yeah, that's like Jesus's one temptation and it's linked to something else that happened to me as a child. No. Remember, you're sitting on your balcony, you're in this place, this sweet, peaceful breeze, beautiful place, and you're looking down at the street. And the thoughts are like people walking in the street, and I'm just going to notice it. I'm not going to try to suppress it. Oh, I don't want to think that. I'm trying to meditate. No. The best way to deal with that thought is just notice it and be above it and just be aware of it and let it be like the sun. It might get a little stronger, and then it'll just start fading. It'll set. And this is the powerful thought. Whatever you're aware of can't control you. So the more you become self-aware, the more you learn how your thought processes work, the less you're like a monkey that just has these programmed things that cause him to do everything in his life. You've actually got freedom. You've actually got choice. So I'm going to guide you, and as I always do, take a few deep breaths, like deeply in, hold, and then slowly breathe out. And as you breathe out, just let it all go. Let the day go, the stresses. I've got to let this conflict go. Let go of tension in your body. Just take a little bit of time to let everything go. Deep breaths in, and then a slow out breath really relaxes you. It physiologically relaxes you. It kickstarts your parasympathetic nervous system. So just do that a little more. Now, before we begin the process of observing our thoughts, let's just get into that sweet place of being, of stillness, of sitting on this beautiful balcony. And the way you choose the way you want to do that, use either breath awareness or body awareness, one of those two. Either do a short scan, starting with feeling your hands to your feet, feeling more than one part of your body at once, moving around your body, spending some delicious moments just enjoying the feeling, different parts of your body, or try to get to 10 or 20 breaths by being very focused on your breathing. And something I didn't mention with breath awareness that's really powerful is when you breathe in, it's different from when you breathe out. So don't think of the in breath and the out breath as one thing. Notice how they're different. Do a breath in and a breath out, just your natural rhythm. Pay attention to it. Remember not to get upset with yourself if you get distracted by a thought. Just let it go and go back to counting breaths or feeling your body. One thing that really helps meditation is to keep your spine straight. Don't slouch, and particularly to keep your head straight in front of you so that its spine is straight. It just gives you a little bit more alertness. And we spoke about how once you start feeling a warmth of presence, it's like you don't jump to it, you continue holding the handrails of the breathing or the body awareness, but you become aware also of that inner body, that inner being, that spiritual nature, that peace, that stillness, that presence. And that's so subtle, it's so small. That's your connection. So now just become very aware of any thoughts. Look out for thoughts. And you might actually even be excited for thoughts to arise now that you understand that they come from energy centers inside of you. that are your false self. And your goal is just to notice them, just to pay attention to them and be aware of them without judging or analyzing them. You might find that if you're intensely aware and looking to observe thoughts, they just don't come. And that's great. And stay in that place. Because the main practice here is awareness. And awareness isn't just something you do, it's actually who you are. It's your true self. It's the light that you have. But it's so smothered often by thoughts. And if anything happens, like there's a noise around you, or you feel a sensation in your body, don't let that throw you. Don't think that, oh boy, that something's all falling apart here. Just be aware. And the more things you're aware of, the better, the stronger your awareness becomes. Sometimes this practice of being aware of your thoughts is actually like catching a mouse and bringing it back into awareness. What I mean by that is often the thoughts only come up because you lapse in your awareness, and then you notice, wait, there's a thought there now. And then don't try to suppress it or just move on. Notice it, even though it might just be faint. this whole practice and everything about meditation is slow and gentle, never doing quick movements of thought of the inner man. You just slowly allowing your awareness to settle on things. That's a great secret of meditation. Gently and slowly. The quick movements of the inner man are reactive movements of our minds. And this is just the time to slow down and have peace and just to rest and to be. So it's very slow. It's like syrup. Most of us are very driven people and also very busy people. And so we're constantly on a hamster wheel of trying to get things done so that we don't disappoint others or for whatever reason. Plus, we drive hard and we desperately need rest. Our souls, our core, inner man and woman needs rest. More than that, we need to learn just to be. We need to discover our true self. And our true self is this connection, this warmth, this presence. And just to be in that place. And from that place, just to be aware. Because one of the great obstacles to meditation is when you've lost the original, the first novelty of it, and your mind begins saying, "Oh, this is a waste of time." But this is the only way, or this is the main way, that the inner man the inner woman, the spirit can get stronger. And that your awareness can grow. So just to sit in it, you can highly value it. We've got a very short time left. And I want you to try to do something, which is try to increase your presence. Try to turn up your awareness without turning up any stress. Almost like you become lighter. It's almost like you resonate at a higher frequency. And what's becoming lighter is your own separate sense of self. So as you increase your presence and frequency, it's like you're dissolving into God, into being. So, as I say every time, try to carry with you what you've got from this. And that whole thing I said to you about slowness, is part of it.
I like the way you tied it into psychology. I think for me, I've gotten to the point where I'm good at seeing my thoughts, but actually being able to do something about them is profound, more profound, I think.
That analogy of sitting above, of being on this beautiful balcony, which is this place of being in the spirit, being in presence, being in stillness, being in God, being in peace, being up there. From there, you have immeasurable ability to be transformed. And so you're there, And then this troublesome thought comes up here. Now, pick your worst thought. I'm not going to ask you what it is, okay? But pick something that comes into your mind now and again that if anyone knew, you'd be really embarrassed, right? And when you're in this thought, it can consume you. But you can step here and observe it, and its energy and its power over you dissipates. The best thing you can do about anything is holding it under the light of presence, of awareness. Anything, even a question like, hey, I've got this tough decision. Like, our minds are great, and sitting in a focused way with pen and paper or talking it over with someone rationally about a challenge, great. But what about just letting this light of presence shine on it for a while, and answers just arise from deep inside of you. And I'm convinced that those aren't just from inside of you, they come from God. They come from the universe, from the source, from being with a capital B, So a bit of a different talk today. I hope you don't mind it. More conceptual and stuff. But this understanding of the false self, of our internal world, like often people say that guy lacks self-awareness, right? And then others, I think we all understand, wow, it's amazing to be self-aware. Like I want to be self-aware. I don't want strings inside of me just being pulled by like some black box computer of my unhealthy need for affirmation, right? And then I go out and do stupid things. And you remember the story of Christ hanging on the cross, Jesus hanging on the cross, and next to him is one of the two thieves. And this guy starts just dumping on him and says, you call yourself the Son of God. If you are the Son of God, get yourself down from this cross. You're just a loser. And like in that moment of agony, do you remember what Jesus said? He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But that's very profound, because that guy didn't know what he was doing. He was just lashing out in anger and frustration. He was being pulled by strings that he wasn't aware of. Do you know what I mean? And by the way, that thought about like when other people are jerks around you, the idea that they're actually unconscious. I'm not saying they're not to blame, but they've got strings inside of themselves pulling them for some twisted reason that they're not aware of. And that's all of us, but the more we become aware of our thoughts. So anyway, I guess, like I said, this practice is powerful as a meditation practice, but if you could take it out into everyday life with you and just be more and more aware of, oh, wow, this crazy thought just popped into my head. That's interesting. Just notice that. And it's quite powerful and transformative.
Away